Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, we are coming back from a long and unexpected hiatus, which is pretty much entirely my fault. And Andy played ball, so thanks, Andy. I appreciate it.
Do what I can.
We took like a week and a half off, and now we're back on a Thursday instead of a Tuesday. Normal episodes are on Tuesday. It's been a weird week, but I promise, guys, we're excited to get back on track. First things first, we're going to talk about some news. Then we're going to talk about Malignant. We saw the new James Wan horror film. That thing has been making waves in a weird way. I don't know if you guys have kept up with the press on it at all, but we're excited to talk about it. We're going to take a look at the trailer for the new Matrix film, along with some October releases, talk about what we're going to be talking about on the show in the next month. And then we're going to take a look at The Card Counter, the new Paul Schrader film, not Schrafer, presented by Martin Scorsese, starring Oscar Isaac as a lone, mysterious card-counting gambler traveling the country. First things first, the news, I guess. Our first story, Shang-Chi remains number one going into, well, it's probably an outdated article now, but it's third weekend when we were going to do the show last week before I had some issues.
I did update this. This does reflect the most recent weekend.
Well, thank you. That's awesome. My banner ad does not, if you're watching on Facebook Live, but I'll fix that right now. Andy, what is this? Shang-Chi's killing it at the box office. Who saw this coming?
I mean, it's Marvel, so in one ways it's not surprising, but it is doing actually better than Black Widow now, as far as it's had a much far less drop off in its third week, and it's going to surpass Black Widow's kind of a domestic take very soon. So it's hot off the presses, and it doesn't have basically any competition, so it's easy for it to dominate the box office.
If you listened a few weeks ago, we already reviewed Shang-Chi, and we actually liked it a lot. Very, very thumbs up from both of us. Andy, you know anybody else who's been going to see it? I feel like most of the people I know are finally kind of getting out and waiting again.
Yeah, I feel like everyone I know, even people that don't go to movies a lot, have gone out to see it.
Mm-hmm. I don't really have a great follow-up for that. So hoping that would stir some conversation. I'm going to be honest. I suppose I'm not surprised this is still at the top, right?
Yeah,
like it's Disney, it's Marvel. What's not to love?
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, there's not really any competition from new films. The quote unquote big release is Cry Macho, which is the Clint Eastwood Western, which is also on HBO Max. And so if anyone I don't even know people who know that this film exists. And if they want to watch it, they can watch it at home, which is where I would have seen it as well. So I think the big thing is just zero competition. And also, it's a good film. And lots of positive word of mouth, lots of, new superhero, new stuff added to the larger Marvel universe. A lot of fun.
Yeah. One thing's for sure. I mean, Disney seems to have the secret sauce to making like a movie pop at the box office. Yes, they're Disney. Yes, they're Marvel. And yes, those are big brands, but movies are getting creamed right now at the box office. Cry Macho is not doing great. Malignant did not do that awesome. Reminiscence did not do that great either from Warner Brothers. Those are just three recent ones. Like, it seems like you're either putting out a huge blockbuster feature or you're destined to fail right now, because theaters are just kind of in a rocky spot after the pandemic, or still going through the pandemic in some places.
Yeah, it seems like no one's coming out, and in fact, because of how bad August was, that's how Top Gun and Mission Impossible 7 got moved because of their performance. And this has actually had the opposite. And then we talked about last week that Venom is actually moving up to October 1st because of how good things are kind of gone, which leads me into kind of a tangential story here that Disney announced that the rest of its 2021 movies will be theatrical only. So it seems like they had basically were able to experiment between Black Widow and Shang-Chi as far as, what's a better release, theater exclusive or kind of hybrid model also on Disney Plus. And it seems like theater is better, and that's what they're going to go with for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it also makes you wonder if that leads into that case they've got with Scarlett Johansson going right now. Following Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson filed suit against Disney because she was supposed to get a lion's share of the profits, according to her contract, from box office take, but Disney did not let her know Black Widow was also going to streaming services, and she kind of got shafted. So I know their CEO, Bob Chapek, recently said that they are analyzing some of their deals with current stars, and they're I don't want to say revisiting. He used some corporate lingo speak, but basically they're kind of tiptoeing around it. So their announcement that everything's going to be theatrical is probably for the best. But in stark contrast to Warner Brothers, who's putting all their stuff on HBO simultaneously, at least this year. Going into next year, Warner Brothers will not be doing that anymore. Is that right?
That's true. They renegotiated a lot of their deals, and they'll be doing, I think, what is now the new standard, the 45-day release window or less, depending on performance.
Yeah. So it might seem like Shang-Chi, God, I got to stop doing that. Shang-Chi is killing it at the box office than it is, and that might feel normal, but ultimately behind the scenes, there's a bit more going on. Let's keep an eye on their box office, see what's hot. Keep an eye on Off Script to find out what's worth watching next week. Our next story, Christopher Nolan's next movie lands at Universal. My God, Christopher Nolan, the blockbuster director, coming hot off the heels of Tenet, is looking worse for wear in this clip. It's probably going to get me copyright violated. Andy, what's this story about?
Well, after kind of a rocky relationship this last year with Warner Brothers, I was going to say over the release of Tenet. No, Tenet came out in theaters, but because of their release strategy of doing this hybrid release, which Christopher Nolan absolutely hates, part of that, he's decided to shop his next picture around, which is about Oppenheimer, the one of the people instrumental in developing the atomic bomb, some sort of World War II epic. He's been shopping that around Hollywood. Most people said no, but he was able to get a yes from Universal with some pretty strict, things in the deal, which Zach, enlighten us.
Okay, so a little bit of background here. If you're not familiar with Christopher Nolan right off the top,
this is now a Chris Nolan hate cast.
It's true, yeah. If you're not familiar with Christopher Nolan right off the top, he's the billionaire blockbuster director of the three best Batman films you've seen, right? Batman Begins, The Dark Knight Rises. He directed Interstellar, The Prestige, Inception, Memento, tons of really great films that have made literally billions of dollars for Warner Brothers. He's a blockbuster director. Ad infinitum. But Christopher Nolan had some problems with Warner Brothers after Tenet came out because it didn't do as well as he expected, and Warner Brothers was disappointed, so there was already some tension there. He was trying to release it in the middle of the pandemic, which ultimately they did. Now Nolan is saying, hey, I don't want anything to do with you Warner Brothers crooks anymore, especially after that big HBO films going to HBO in 2021 announcement that they did. So he started shopping around to Sony and MGM and even Warner Brothers again, and Universal, and ultimately Universal is buying his next picture. The reason Andy is saying this is a hate cast is because I did some digging into Nolan and this Universal deal. And I'm going to be honest, the more I read about Christopher Nolan, the less I like the guy, because he really seems like one of those artists who knows he's the hot stuff, and he is asking for like absurd finance deals and like ridiculous terms to get these films made. And ultimately, it's the humble opinion of this small podcaster that this World War II film about J. Robert Oppenheimer is not going to pop bigger than like Interstellar. I think this movie is going to be a little smaller, a little bit more intimate, despite its huge budget. And I think Universal might be in for a ride. But I don't know. What do you think, Andy?
I think there's a lot of potential. I mean, Nolan he can be a great storyteller, and I think maybe going smaller might actually help him some. He did ask for $100 million budget up front, which is seems huge for most people, but it's actually smaller for him with an accompanied $100 million marketing budget. So $200 million film total. But it's more private. It's focusing on one person and this complex, very complex thing about the Manhattan Project and developing the atom bomb. And we know that Nolan likes to go big, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets kind of this character study to be a blockbuster essentially.
Yeah. I guess we'll see. This Robert Oppenheimer film he's making, like I said, it's got a host of kind of rules and regulations around it. He's got first day box office gross take. He's got this weird, like, I think it's like a 15-day window on the sides of it. Universal can't release any films next to it or immediately behind it because it has to stand on its own in their slate. Like just ridiculous stuff. But to dilute it down, we're gonna have to see what happens with this movie. It seems like it's not coming out till 2023 or 2024. It has a huge budget, an insane CGI budget. Of course, it's assumed we're probably blowing up an atom bomb at the end of this movie, right? It's about
yeah.
the guy who made the atom bomb. That would make sense. So it could be rad. It could be exciting. I just, man, he's really starting to lose that like clever auteur status for me, and he's slipping into like just kind of douchebag artist, right? Like just won't play by anybody else's rules and refuses to listen to reason, and that's not fun. Nobody wants to see their favorite director go that way. So we'll see what happens with Chris Nolan. Andy, you're hopeful, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's one of the best working directors today. Has changed cinema multiple times. So you can't write off the guy, but he is definitely becoming more and more difficult to work with.
He is, yeah, and he's becoming more and more difficult to cover on this podcast. Our last story: HBO Max slashes prices in half after HBO leaves Amazon channels. What the hell is going on at Warner Brothers, Andy? Why is HBO suddenly turn out subscriptions literally at half price? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, so this is a little bit of a complicated story. So HBO Max is leaving Amazon Prime, kind of Amazon Prime itself. It will still be available on Amazon Fire TV, which is like a different entity, but it's leaving Amazon Prime primarily because apparently they don't actually get access to a lot of the user data that is generated, and the HBO and Warner doesn't like that, so they're just kind of breaking off so they can have access to that. This was actually decided several years ago that they would do this, almost probably before this even launched HBO Max. So they want to get away from Amazon so they can look at all the subscriber data and use it to themselves. And so what they're doing to compensate, because they're going to be taking HBO off of those channels, they're offering half price subscriptions for the first 6 months. That is to be noted. So it'll be $7 or $8 for new subscribers. And again, it's complicated because it involves data, it involves accessibility, but ultimately HBO wants to get away from Amazon, and they're slashing prices to incentivize subscribers.
I think something that really stands out to me in this story is this decision for HBO to break from Amazon and stop being over there and separate themselves from that platform. This was made 2 years ago. They decided they were going to do this. And to me, deciding you're going to make a very large move in and out of streaming services with your streaming service 2 years in advance is a weird thing to do. In a time when streaming services are, I don't want to say volatile, but they move a lot right now. There's a lot of them. The landscape is ever changing, especially considering the pandemic. It is really hard to predict where the industry is going to be 2 years from today. So the fact that 2 years ago they decided, hey, we're going to do this thing is a little weird now. But ultimately, I think it's a good thing. I hate getting on Prime and scrolling and seeing a bunch of HBO content that I can't access because it's hidden behind a paywall, and they don't easily advertise that. So good, right? This should see more of Amazon's content up front, which seems positive for them, and this should see HBO kind of diluting or distilling, I should say, their library into one central location. Seems smart. I imagine some bean counter in Hollywood is bummed about this, right? Some accountant somewhere.
The spreadsheets.
Yeah, the numbers don't add up, I'm sure. But on the consumer side, I don't see a problem with this.
If you're an existing subscriber, this isn't going to apply to you. But for new subscribers, it'll be an incentive. And like I said, this is being done because they're anticipating subscriber loss from leaving Amazon.
Right. Not to bury the lead, I should specify, Andy, you probably already said this. Regarding the half price HBO, because some of you might have got excited about, oh my God, HBO Max for half price. So it's only for anybody who had access to HBO via the Amazon Channels platform. You had to have been using it before. Then you get that sick discount, and you get it for up to 6 months, which is great. But I mean, I don't think I know anybody that was doing that. And if you're listening to the show and you know me and you were doing that, write into the show and let me know at mail@offscriptfilmreview.com, because I wouldn't mind picking your brain a little bit, because I had never used HBO through Amazon's platform. I know it was functional. Obviously, it was some kind of news that this was happening, so somebody was using it. I don't know. Write in and let us know. And with that, we should move on to our first review of the episode. I'm going to be honest, I'm taking the summary on this one, and I'm not stoked, man. I think the summary on this one's kind of challenging, but I'm going to do my best.
It is. It's a lot.
Yes. The movie is James Wan's Malignant. So Malignant is a horror film that's a tribute to classic campy B horror films. I think it's the best place to start. Malignant may look on its face like a few of James Wan's other horror films, like Insidious or The Conjuring, or maybe even Saw, right? The thing that really kicked off his career. And in a lot of ways, it's like those films. But in a few ways, it's drastically different. And unfortunately, the ways in which it's different, we can't really talk about because we don't really do spoilers on this show. So I'll do my best to kind of toe around the loose summary. And I think Andy and I will do our best to kind of talk around it. But I should say before we get into it, Malignant is it's not quite what it seems. there's something happening in this movie that is hidden under the surface, and you kind of have to go see it and get into it to find out what that is, and we're going to talk about it here. So Malignant is the story of, I don't remember her name. What is our lead's name? Madison. To be fair, it was like we saw this a couple weeks ago and we had this weird hiatus, so I apologize for that. Yes, it's the story of Madison, this young woman who just has nothing going her way. She is sad, and she has I think a boyfriend, maybe a husband, who is not kind to her, and she does not have a lot of friends, and she's like clearly going through some kind of depression, but she starts having these manic dream state episodes where she sees this trench coat, like hooded, can't really get a good look at him, killer murdering people in horrible fashion. But these visions, they're not just simply visions. She in some weird way like transports in like a dimension thing to be a part of this universe, and she's like tangibly at these scenes when these people are getting murdered. And vice versa, this killer can seemingly step into her world as well. The trailer shows some of this. They do some graphic CGI stuff, like the world kind of melts away, and ultimately she has to uncover like the mystery behind these dreams, find out whether or not these killings are actually happening, and if they are, ideally put a stop to them. I feel like saying this as the summary is like I said, just kind of scratching the surface. So Andy,
definitely the setup.
Yeah, with that setup in mind, what did you think of Malignant?
So it's interesting because I watched this at home, and when it gets started, it has a really kind of bizarre opening scene.
Very bizarre,
and it had some really kind of strange dialogue, and it was initially really, really cliche, really paint by number, really, and in somewhat weird ways over the top. Like the boyfriend is super abusive out of nowhere.
Yes.
You feel like you're watching a Lifetime movie, to quote Red Letter Media. At the beginning, yeah. It's bizarre in that way, and then these murders start happening. Madison is the kind of prime suspect, it kind of turns into a little bit of a cop procedural. Cops come out and be like, well, you were here when these murders happened. What did you see? Like, you're suspect number one. And it hits all these really, really, just common beats that we've seen. And I got really bored out. I was a little sleepy when I was watching this, and about an hour in, I was like, I have to go lay down. So I went and like took a nap, and then, and I was
hours.
Right. And I was bored as well. And like I said, it's hitting all these really, like, I'm rolling my eyes through all of this, and I'm just like, oh gosh, where's this going to go? And then kind of the last 30 minutes go absolutely off the rails. Like, it turns into something completely unforeseen, and that the beginning did not prepare you for. And the trailer, like I said, the trailers kind of do a bait and switch, but in a good way. And in my opinion, it kind of redeems the whole movie, because now I really know what it is. It's not serious horror. It's much more of like a campy B movie with this kind of really crazy premise, and then like the action in the last third is just like, it's insane, and it really makes up for the rest of it being so ridiculous. And when I was first watching it, I was like, this is bad. This is like The Room bad. Like, this is drinking game. Get your friends together.
Like this is James Wan's worst film bad. Yeah. Like, this is bad. Yes.
Pour shots and, decide when you're going to, take them. And, but then, like I said, it kind of goes crazy in the last third, and I'm not going to say any more than that for spoiler reasons. But it definitely kind of, for me, it made up for the rest of it being pretty lackluster.
Yeah. I'm in a unique position. I don't feel the same way. I did not like this movie. I was bored through the first two acts, and act 3 where things turn on their head. Did not redeem it for me. I was just like, no, like just okay. You made a half hour of a good movie and stuck up behind an hour 20 of a terrible film. Like that does not work out for me. That doesn't pass the smell test. I've since revisited it. Andy referenced the Red Letter Media review. People have been writing articles about this, and they're all over the board. Roger Ebert's site, they gave this 1 star. They were like, "This film is trash, and it's one of Wan's worst." Meanwhile, you have other reviewers who are giving it 4, and they're saying this is like a brilliant like tribute to B-movie horror, and Wan is doing something really inventive here on a big blockbuster budget. I don't know. I wish I think I see that side of the argument, but I don't see it in the film. And I'd probably need to watch it again to really get back to it. I think Andy makes a good point. I watched this at home as well. Probably a mistake. This probably should have been a theatrical film. I think I may have been able to get into it more, or I may have walked out because I would have been like, "This is terrible." So let's talk about it, Andy. Why is the first 2/3 of this film feel really bad?
Well, I mean, a number of reasons. First off, like I said, it's kind of paint by number. You have like let me think. You have home trauma, you have haunted house, you have detective procedural, you got faceless
abuse,
generic
killer, yes.
Faceless killer, mental hospital escape, in our main character, the beginning is just really bizarre. So it hits all these really cliche points. This relationship with her husband is super. It's over the top abusive. It's like way too. It keeps reminding me of this bit that SNL does with the movie about racism. And there's one scene where like the guy is just so overtly racist. It's just like no one. Well, I'm not like that guy. It's kind of like. Right. Yeah. This relationship with their boyfriend is just like unbelievably abusive. But then you also have like this masked killer, but then she's kind of seen visions of it. Reminds me actually a little bit of the original Candyman, where she's like the person is there, sees it, is kind of part of it, and then is also suspected to be the a suspect number 1 because of it.
Yeah.
And then there's just also really weird campy decisions like. So Madison has a sister that shows up named Sydney, who's they're kind of like Nancy Drew trying to figure this thing out. But then there's also this weird semi-romance between the lead detective, who's like way too attractive to be a detective. But there's a weird like attraction between her sister and him, and then also like his CSI like person that like she's like trying to and there's these really awkward like romantic gestures out of nowhere, and then they don't go anywhere. They don't actually like develop into anything. So there's just like I said, it's bland, it's cliche, it's boring, and but then it really turns around. Right. For me, that's what's the difference. So go on.
So let me expound on. I think I can explain this in a way that isn't like revealing to what's happening in the film. Really, the reason I think I've said, and Andy said, many people have said that this is like a tribute to campy B movie horror films, is because when you think of like B movie horror from like the 80s and the 70s and maybe even the 90s. We're talking a little bit about things like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but we're also talking about like Sleepaway Camp and Fright Night and chopping mall, is that movie? Like horror films that like objectively are bad. They're bad movies. Like you would get together and drink beer and watch them with your friends. You wouldn't actually be spooked by them. You'd just be like, wow, these are kind of
low budget.
Yeah, like watching teens get chopped up, right? Like nothing exciting, like low budget, goofy blood effects, like nothing that's really blockbuster level. Well, James Wan, I think most people are speculating that that's what he was running towards in this film. He's actually trying to produce something like that here. Plot lines that don't really go anywhere, characters that have super cliche dialogue, like things happening in the film that don't fit any semblance of logic outside of just the supernatural horror stuff, like actual logical fallacies like that our characters are making, like just basically a bad movie. Like, it feels a whole lot like he was setting out to make a bad movie, and people are saying like, oh, he was doing that as a tribute to previous bad horror films. That's what's going on here. And the third act does kind of come around in service of that. Like, the events of the third act of this film, I think are some kind of bow on top of a present that is this tribute to B movie horror, like in camp, right? And maybe even schlock in certain cases, especially in our opening scene. That's really, really something else. But I don't think it works. I think it's just a bad horror film. I think it's obvious in the marketing. I mean, the poster has this, like, if you're watching on Facebook Live, you can see the poster. We've got it up right now. It's got this kind of red theme and no real imagery behind it, because even Warner Brothers didn't know how to market this thing. The tagline is a new vision of terror. It's just like, no, it's not. It's not a new vision of anything.
It's
you
the
guys
same-
just didn't even know.
the
Yeah,
old
they didn't
vision
know
of
what the hell
terror.
they had. Like, they had this thing and they were like, how do we make this
See,
into a marketable film? And like, I think that's the stumble. People don't know what they're walking into here.
yeah, and that, well, in some ways, like, they could have been more upfront about it, but then I think it would have. It kind of, it's a nice surprise when it
Yes.
kind of goes crazy at the end, because you're not expecting that. Again, it looks like something more along the lines of The Conjuring and Insidious, and the premise looks like it's almost like a sleep paralysis demon thing, where she's frozen, and then but you can see visions of these murders happening, and so it kind of looks like it's going to be a murder mystery, and she's going to have to help the police track this guy down. And doesn't go that way at all. Here's the thing for me is that I would definitely rewatch this, and like I want to rewatch this in like a group, like with like unsuspecting victims to watch this with. Make like I could see myself like, I'm going to watch this once a year at Halloween with a group of friends and laugh about how bad the beginning is, and then like get your jaw drops in at the later half.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty in that camp as well. I'd be curious to see how people take this who have never seen it or really know where it's going. I think in this review, we've been pretty concise. I don't think we've really given a lot away. If anything, I think people who may not have had this film on their radar might be listening to us and be like, hold on, what the hell are they talking about? I got to go see this film. And I hope that's not misleading. Like I said, I was not that impressed by where this movie goes. Other people, meanwhile, have been like, my God, 4 stars. This film's incredible. I don't know, Andy, where do you land? I mean, are you firmly in the, this is amazing? Are you this?
I don't think it's amazing. I think knowing what it is, knowing the kind of film it is now, makes it more acceptable. Like, I think it would have been more palatable had you gone in knowing it was this sort of like B movie schlock, because that's what essentially the first 2/3 are. But you don't realize that's what's happening. It just seems bad for the sake of being bad. But it's when you know the kind of movie it is, then it totally makes sense. And I do think that I mean, I've seen a lot of horror movies, a lot of gore and violence on TV and the internet and in film, and I was still pretty shocked by kind of the action scenes at the end.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the best way to wrap this up regarding performances. I know that's something we normally do in these reviews. We say, oh yeah, this actor is great, or this actress is great. They're all no names. You don't know anybody in this movie. I thought
the lead, Annabelle Wallis, was really good, because she does kind of have to carry the majority of the movie.
I'm firmly in the other camp. I thought she was terrible in this film. And I don't know. And I don't know if that's by direction. Like, that's the thing. Like, I can't tell if James Wan is like, twirling his Dick Dastardly mustache and counting his Scrooge bucks, like McDuck dollars, or if he's like, this is the worst film I've made and this was a terrible mistake. I really don't know. I don't know I don't know if this is a brilliant performance or a terrible one. And ultimately, I think ambiguity does not save you in cinematic history. If people can't determine whether or not a film is good or bad pretty quickly, it gets swept under the rug for films to come. October looks like a huge slate. I don't know where this movie's going to be come next year. Are we getting a Malignant 2? I have no idea.
I mean, I will say about that, it did not, surprisingly, didn't really hit at the box office. Usually horror is kind of, you can count on it. But it just made just over 5 million. So it didn't really find an audience there. It was available on HBO Max as well. So that might have contributed to it.
Both of us watched it. Yes.
But sometimes, sometimes horror is usually a pretty good bet, especially during the pandemic. It seems to be that's the one thing people will come out for. So it seemed, and who knows why? Maybe it was word of mouth. Maybe it was, just kind of mixed marketing. Who knows? But it didn't really find an audience.
I don't know. I think to kind of bring it full circle, I don't believe this film is some kind of wonderful, and a lot of people do, and it doesn't seem like it on its face. So I guess you gotta go see yourself and find out. Andy, you ready for recommendations?
I am.
Andy, would you recommend Malignant?
I would recommend it with some caveats. If you're a big horror fan and you like all things horror, serious B movies, slashers, everywhere in between, I'd say definitely come out and see this. It's definitely something to kind of add to the repertoire of horror movies that have come out this year. If that's not your thing, you might want to skip it. And I don't know. Again, if you can see it at home. Just do that. And like I said, I think it's something that's going to kind of live on the way The Room has lived on. It's going to make a great Halloween drinking game every other year for that. So I would recommend it to probably hardcore horror fans.
I would not recommend it. I think there are a ton of other more exciting horror films you should be looking at. Not this one. I don't know. I look at this as a bit of a miss in Wan's category. If I was going to pick up a James Wan film off the shelf and watch it, I'd pick up Insidious, The Conjuring, or Saw any day before I'd grab this one. That's just me. I know it's doing something unique. I should sit on it. Andy made a great point. This would be a good watch in October, and I love watching horror films come October. Maybe not this year. Maybe next year. I'll come back to it fresh, real fresh. Now that I know what I'm getting into, and it might be a totally different scene, but like. I just didn't. It did not do it for me. I wish it had. I do, but that's me. So yeah. And with that, we should move on to our middle section here. Normally, we'll look at a couple of trailers, or we'll talk about what's currently killing cinema in our very exciting award-winning Death of Cinema segment. But we're not award-winning this week. Instead, we're going to talk about things that are coming. I know that we have won 0 awards. Well, I say that none, absolutely none. But there are some exciting things coming out in October that we want to talk about. Starting with Andy, what movie are we starting with?
Well, before that, we're going to get into a little bit of the trailer park with the Matrix Resurrections trailer, which came out a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So as we've talked about before, I'm a huge Matrix fan. I saw the originals in theater, played the games, watched Animatrix, like really a huge fan of the series. We finally saw a trailer for this movie that's coming out in just 3 months. Comes out Christmas week. And it was something else. So it was a long trailer. We get kind of in the first half, we see Keanu Reeves, old Neo, kind of what is assumed to be back in the Matrix. And we get a little bit of, it's reminiscent of the first film where he is kind of stuck. We see him talking with Neil Patrick Harris, who's wearing very obvious blue rimmed glasses. He's taking these blue pills, which we kind of assume that he's being suppressed in there. And he's broken out, or appears to be broken out, by Morpheus, played this time differently by Yahya Mateen II, who was, of course, in Candyman. So we see him kind of being broken out of prison again, very reminiscent of the first film. And then the second half of the trailer really gets into a lot of action, where we see kind of these chases, these fights, and we see a lot of Matrix iconography. So we see some bullet dodging, we see kung fu, gun fu, all the kind of crazy flips, with a lot of new characters, though, as well. Like I said, a new person playing Morpheus, but also character played by Jessica Henwick with blue hair. And there's a lot of this, you got to follow me to learn the truth through the looking glass, follow the white rabbit. We also see Trinity, played by Carrie-Anne Moss, also in the film, possibly as some sort of just in code or memory or something. That it's really unclear what the plot of this is, but it does look very, very reminiscent of the first film. I thought it was a really awesome trailer. I've watched like the last minute of when all the action happens, because it's just really over the top. So it got me pretty excited, pretty pumped about it. Zach, what do you think?
I think The Matrix 4 has a super good trailer. I've watched it like 10 times, and I try not to get super excited about stuff like this. And I know The Matrix 4 has everything going against it. I mean, it's the 4th film. It's been a long time since we've seen the last one. the previous two films didn't exactly have the highest box office reviews, and we're missing a director, right? This is not the Wachowski siblings anymore. This is simply Lana Wachowski. So it's, questionable, but it seems to boast a really strong color palette. It looks different. It looks new. It looks like it's got a fresh coat of paint, and it's exactly what it needs to have. I think if this movie's got a solid script and it's going somewhere interesting, and what I assume will be the next couple of films, I'm boldly assuming this is a new trilogy. I don't know if they've announced that or not, but I think it could be good stuff. Or maybe there's no way this is just the one. They're not just making one of these, right? You don't put a CGI budget into a movie like this and make one. There's no way.
Yeah, I mean, we live in the world of franchises, and if you got a familiar property that's going to hit, like, you're going to want to make, film, TV series, cereal box of it all, just like they did with, Matrix O's or whatever. So that's why I'm saying, and this reminds me a little bit of Candyman, because Candyman definitely felt like an origin film, felt like the first of more films to come, and that's what this feels as well. And it reminds me a lot of The Force Awakens, or what The Force Awakens eventually turned out to be, which was a rehashing of the first movie. So I'm not getting my hopes too, like, I do want to see new things, but at the same time, if they're looking to reestablish and build a new franchise, a new brand, it makes sense to kind of revisit the first film, or what kind of the elements of the first film. It would be nice if, like, we got to break Neo out again, but then we can kind of move into new territory. I will be interested to see what the actual conflict is between, like, man and machine here, because the third Matrix ends with a peace between the two factions. So it'll be interesting to see what has kind of broken that, and why we're back to fighting agents and the machines again.
Yeah, and I think that's the brilliance of the trailer. Like, it already is throwing up questions. Wait a second, how is Neo back? How is Trinity back? Why is Morpheus replaced? Is that Morpheus, or is that somebody else? Why are the machines doing stuff again? Like, and that's a great spot for the trailer to be in. It's not too exculpatory, doesn't give a whole lot away. It just says, hey, something's going on. Come see this to find out more. Strong trailer. I hope they don't release a whole lot more, honestly, and I kind of
they will.
Yeah, they will for sure.
Well, and I won't be able to stop myself from watching it.
Yeah, and I'm just excited for the license to hopefully open up a little bit from Warner Brothers. I think The Matrix is such a compelling cinematic universe. There's a lot of you could do in there. There's a ton of stories you could tell. Hopefully that loosens up a little bit, and we can start to get some new creators in there.
Yeah, I think what this could start, I mean, it could start the cinematic universe where we start getting TV shows, or maybe more animated stuff, or just different spin-offs, because that's ultimately what these really big properties like Star Wars and Marvel do, that they're such rich universes that you can generate so much content in multiple forms. And now it's becoming like kind of the thing to do is to have some TV series to supplement your films. So I could definitely see a few movies coming out, and then like an HBO series as well. So I think there's a lot of potential here, and I'm definitely excited about it.
Yeah, there's no reason Warner Brothers couldn't have like an 8 or 12 episode limited HBO series that's set in the Matrix. Like, absolutely no reason that couldn't happen. We'll see. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, keep hearing Off Script for more about Matrix 4. Andy, next month is stacked.
Absolutely stacked.
I didn't know how stacked it was until I opened the outline you put together this week. Thank you again. And was like, oh my God, October is super stacked. So let's talk about it. What the hell's coming out next month?
A lot. So I'll start with October 1st. We got two big releases. Number one is Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Follow up to 2018's Venom film. That's going to be a big one. That's in theaters only. And again, that got moved up because of the success of Shang-Chi, and Sony's really hoping that people are coming out for the comic book stuff. The other big release on October 1st is The Many Saints of Newark, which is the prequel film of The Sopranos. That's going to take place in the 60s and feature a lot of the characters and younger versions of these characters in that time period. That's also coming out in theaters / HBO Max. So that's two huge releases on just the first Friday in October.
Yeah, and just really quick, you are stoked about Many Saints of Newark, right?
Yeah, I'm a big Sopranos fan. I've watched it all the way through twice, which it's like 60 odd episodes, so it's quite the undertaking. And I've done it, and it's one of the best shows ever made. if not the best show ever made, depending on who you ask. And I'm going to be interested to see where this goes, because one film almost doesn't feel enough, but it'll be interesting to see, kind of what made Tony Soprano, but also a lot of the show is really about relationships between, father and sons and friends and family. And it's so much about these family ties and the difficulties of that. And be interesting to see what that looks like on kind of the younger side of things.
Yeah. I, meanwhile, have not watched a lot of Sopranos. I know I should, but we do a movie podcast, right? I'm a movie guy. So that'll be an interesting watch, because I think I'll be going in a little fresher than maybe Andy will. We'll have to do it whenever we review it. Probably soon, right? I mean, it's the first week of October.
Yep.
Next up, on October 8th, that next week, 7 short days away from the first, we have 2 big releases. Number 1, No Time to Die, the new James Bond film. And as far as you know, Daniel Craig's last outing as Bond. Very exciting. That film just keeps getting pushed back, and we're excited to finally see it. That'll be theaters only. And also, the A24 film Lamb comes out on October 8th. I didn't know this was so soon. Andy, I don't know if I want to go see that film.
Oh, I do. It's going to be so disturbing. It's going to, give you psychological nightmares. It's going to remind me of Midsummer, where it's like, why did you take me to see this?
Yeah.
Why would you do that to me? I can't wait.
The quick byline on Lamb, if you weren't listening last week, Lamb appears to be, because the trailer's pretty cryptic, the story of a married couple in like Scotland or Ireland, the Highlands, somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, who have a farm, and one day one of their sheep gives birth to a half human, half lamb, and they decide to raise it as their own. And then the trailer just gets weirder from there. It's an A24 film. It will likely feature some kind of horror elements. Could be full-on horror for all I know.
People will die.
Lamb, man. Yeah, it's gonna
Lambs
be a
to
film.
the slaughter.
I don't know if that one's for me. What's coming out that next week?
Big week for horror the following week, October 15th, Halloween Kills, the sequel to 2018's Halloween. Classic Michael Myers, starring Jamie Lee Curtis as older Laurie Strode. This is part 2 in what we know is a 3-film trilogy of Michael Myers. So that's kind of annoying, because this isn't going to completely end in this one, right. But it's classic slasher horror. So we'll and I've seen that trailer so many times. I'm so sick of it. It plays before everything. Yeah. And then the other big release is The Last Duel, which is the period piece starring Jodie Comer, Adam Driver, Ben Affleck, and Matt Damon, which is, it's kind of a Me Too film, but set in the past, based on some real characters, and it looks really good. It's brutal. It's Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
There is, you see scenes of this actual duel between these two men, as well as accusations of sexual assault and denial, and that's of course still very relevant today. That looks super good to me. I'm really excited for that.
So I'm a little stoked for Halloween Kills. I'm a Halloween fan. I love all those old movies. I love the new ones a bit, but the more they remake it, the less the more I sour on it, just because I think the formula is pretty simple. We don't need to keep going back to that well. But the last Halloween film was pretty good, and this one reportedly is very bloody. That's what I keep seeing. That apparently Michael Myers gets real down and dirty in this one, which could be rad. The Rob Zombie films did that, and that's a really cool angle to take with that killer. So we'll see what happens there. Last Duel, I'm not that stoked about. I know it's Ridley Scott. Dude, Jodie Comer is super good in Free Guy, and I'm very excited to see her in this film. I think she'll probably crush it. And Adam Driver's great. Matt Damon's pretty good. Ben Affleck, I mean, it'll be okay. Like
Ben Affleck exists.
Ben Affleck.
He does look
all right.
He does look super out of place in this period piece, like because it looks Shakespearean, and it's like you shouldn't be here.
Like Ridley, and Ridley Scott does period stuff really well. He really does. So everything should add up for this to be awesome. But I don't know, maybe it's the kind of an experimental trailer, and it just feels a little weak to me. That it feels a little thin. It feels like the whole plot's given away in the trailer. We'll see what happens. Now the next week, October 22nd. If you're going to the movies in October, my God, this has to be the week to do it. October 22nd features Dune, right? Denis Villeneuve's new film. We are very stoked to see this film. It's already dropped in some countries. I think, Romania's got it. Norway's got it. I think Sweden has it. Places that
Yeah, it's dropped internationally.
Yes, have maybe handled the pandemic a little wiser than our American audiences here, and reviews are strong for Dune. Additionally, October 22nd sees The French Dispatch coming out, Wes Anderson's new film. It's a bit of a amalgamation of kind of short stories about a column or a publication in Kansas City
Yeah,
Observer or something like that,
yeah, it's a collection of the kind of short stories.
yes, featuring an all-star cast. I'm getting to be more of a Wes Anderson fan the older I get, so that seems strong. Between Dune and French Dispatch, my God, what a week at the movies.
Yeah, I'm kind of the opposite with Wes Anderson. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, you're gonna do the same. You're gonna do a symmetrical
right.
shot again. Oh, look.
Yeah. Ooh, pastel colors, neat.
Yeah,
Bill Murray again, huh? Wow. Owen Wilson is also in this film.
Yeah, every film kind of looks the same, and it all bleeds together.
They all feature like the same kind of like playwright cast of characters. Like he definitely has his players. Wes Anderson does. What about the last week?
But our fifth, there's 5 weekends in October, by the way. So to kick off your Halloween weekend is Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho, the kind of time travel horror thriller starring Anya Taylor-Joy and Thomasin McKenzie. That looks really good. Really awesome second trailer came out that Zach somehow avoided seeing. I did see it in theaters, by the way. So good luck. But that looks really good. I think that's probably one of the things I'm most excited about for this entire fall series the rest of the year. That's going to be really good. And another smaller horror film, which was actually supposed to come out during 2020, called Antlers, which involves a young boy who's kind of keeping and feeding this kind of Wendigo Sasquatch character in like his basement. It looks really creepy. Looks like some good horror. I don't know a lot about it, but that's the other big release for October 29th. Lots of horror, lots of great films, and we haven't even gotten into streaming. I don't even know what's coming out on streaming as well.
I'm definitely excited for Last Night in Soho. I haven't seen that second full trailer yet. I don't want to. I'm excited to go see the film. It's Edgar Wright's new picture. I'm down for it. I'll go see it anyway. Antlers, I'm genuinely surprised has not come out yet. Like, I feel like I saw a trailer for that film like 2 years ago. I feel like Andy and I were in our first 50 episodes of Off Script when we saw a trailer for Antlers. And I'm sure that's drastically wrong, but like,
it was supposed to come out
like we were doing the show in person when the first time I saw a trailer for Antlers. Like, it's been that long. It's crazy.
We were supposed to, or it was supposed to come out April 2020.
Yeah.
And so we're way long past that. It's a smaller film. You know, they got to try and hit big. They're going to try to hit it on Halloween. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. It also, I'm pretty sure, features Kerry Russell, who is the same lead in Lamb, right?
No, that's Noomi Rapace.
Oh, you're right. That's true. Not quite. All right. Well, that's good. I would have thought she'd end up like Matt Damon, the year Interstellar came out, like just dude on a planet. Typecast was the term I was looking for. It's a big month. October's a big month at the movies. I don't know how many. Okay, Andy, how many of these theatrical features do we intend to see?
I mean, a lot of this were okay. I'll run down. Venom, I mean, you don't have a choice. That has to be in theaters. No Time to Die has to be in theaters.
Yeah.
Halloween, that's what the thing. A lot of these are actually theatrical exclusives. Both Halloween Kills and The Last Duel are theatrical exclusives. Dune is both theatrical and HBO Max, but that's definitely got to see that in theaters. French Dispatch, I don't know the release on that, but I think it'll probably be. It probably won't be.
I think it's theater only. Yeah.
Last Night in Soho's theater onlys. So I mean, there's only a couple of these that I'm not going to see in the theaters. It's kind of, it demands it that the films do.
It's true, especially in the case of something like Dune. Don't watch Dune on HBO. Just go see it.
Don't watch it on your phone.
Please, God, yeah, don't watch it on your phone. Like that thing is shot with IMAX cameras. Come on, like go see it somewhere grand. But obviously, I can't speak for everything else. I'm excited. October seems like a big month of movies. I don't know how we're going to keep up, but keep it here on Off Script for more exciting reviews for what's coming out in October. One review to go, Andy. And here I thought this was going to be a fast episode. Shoot, silly me.
You thought?
Yeah, I sure did think. Well, Andy's going to be taking the summary on this one. Andy, please take it away.
The Card Counter. So this is the latest film by writer-director Paul Schrader, who famously wrote Taxi Driver and also most recently did First Reform, starring Ethan Hawke. That film was about a kind of a tormented priest and about environmentalism, very tortured character. Very good film. And so this is his latest film, The Card Counter, starring Oscar Isaac as a man named William Tell. And you'll see the significance of his name if you see the film. William Tell is a gambler. He is a card counter. The film opens with him teaching us how to count cards at a game of 21. It's an incredibly complicated thing to do, and it's explained very quickly, and you're not really supposed to get it, but he just kind of explains, oh, this is how it's done. And we learned that he learned to count cards in prison. We don't really know what he did to get there. And we see that he's good at what he does, but he doesn't play big. He walks away. We see him walk away from his table with about $800, and he just kind of goes on his way. And he tells the audience, casinos don't care if you count cards. They care if you win. And he said they don't care if you win. They care if you win big, and they care how you win. So if you play small, you don't, just win small, you'll be fine. And he doesn't just play blackjack. He plays all manner of gambling games, games of chance, and he's very, very good at them. Very soon we run into Tiffany Haddish's character named Linda, who runs what's called a stable, which in gambling terms is a kind of stable of professional gamblers backed by high dollar investors. So the gamblers use other people's money to gamble with, and then they split the winnings. This, of course, can be very lucrative, but also very bad if you don't win. So we have this opportunity to join the stable. He's a little unsure of it, but he keeps Linda at arm's length. And she's played fine by Tiffany Haddish, who's a little bit over her head because she's a comedic actress and hasn't really done a serious film that I've seen before. So it's kind of a different change of pace for her. Meanwhile, we also meet Ty Sheridan's character, a young man named Kirk with a C, who's kind of on a mission of revenge, and him and Oscar Isaac have a person in common in their past, and that's kind of how they meet. And I'm trying not to get too into the weeds of this, but William Tell, Oscar Isaac, is basically on a mission of redemption. From his kind of dark and mysterious past, he sees the young man Kirk as a road to that redemption. He wants to be kind of a father figure, kind of help guide this young man who's very angry. So he takes them on the road with him, and they're kind of touring the country, gambling, and running into Linda at a lot of these big gambling tournaments. And we learn more about his mysterious past along the way. So there's a lot going on in this film. That's the basic setup. Zach, what'd you think?
So The Card Counter is really unique because it's fundamentally an indie film, right? It's directed by a director Paul Schrader is not nobody. He's definitely a big writer. He helped write Raging Bull, Taxi Driver for Martin Scorsese. Most recently, he directed First Reformed, his 2017 feature starring Ethan Hawke as a pastor who that film did really well. I remember that got box office acclaim, that got Oscar buzz. Like First Reformed didn't he get nominated for an Oscar? Pretty sure.
I think for writing or something. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, like Oscar nominated film that he directed and wrote. So obviously he's got some street cred. But you look at the trailer for The Card Counter, and it seems really small. It's shot mostly in hotels. If it's shot in casinos, it looks like they shot in small ones. I mean, like shoestring budgets, very simple costumes, very simple lighting, usually just practical, whatever's available on site, small cast. It seems really small. And I thought, and I told Andy this, I think I talked about this in the show, I thought the trailer is really poorly cut too. Additionally, the poster looks really simple, right? Like it's kind of this
it's CGI Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, it looks like CGI Oscar Isaac. Like it doesn't even look like him. Yeah, and it's kind of like just strange. But at the top of all this, it says Martin Scorsese presents, right? And Martin Scorsese's not nobody. I think of big directors presenting films. I think of Peter Jackson presenting District 9. I think of Quentin Tarantino presenting Grindhouse, right? Which he still had part in. But either way, Typically, when a big name director presents a film, that means they've got something behind it. They're excited about it. And the card counter ultimately does a lot right. It's got a really fantastic performance from Oscar Isaac. It's got some really interesting avenues it pursues as far as like emotional storytelling. But also, I think it's really low budget. And I think Paul Schrader wasn't able to capture things, I think, in maybe the way he had intended in his head. There's some stuff that just doesn't work in this movie. So I do like it, and I do want to talk about it. Andy, what's the best place to get started?
Well, one thing I want to get into is that the trailer is very deceptive. Again, the trailer makes it look like it's like a hardcore like gambling movie or card shark movie, in which that's like kind of a genre of itself. Gamblers, card sharks,
and the title implies, of course,
yeah,
a person
playing
21 and counting cards the whole time.
Yeah, you're expecting some guy who's like down and out, but he's a brilliant blackjack player, and he's just got one big last score, and then he's got to retire, and you know that's what this movie is about. Anything besides gambling and card counting. Our main character, William Tell, is basically funneling all his energy into being good at poker and other games of chance to kind of just keep himself focused and from kind of going off the deep end. Which the backstory, and all I'll say about that is that he's ex-military and he has a military background, and that plays a big part of his backstory. I don't want to get into any more than that, but that's really what this is about. I actually, to give my opinion, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was really tremendous, really great performance from Oscar Isaac, but it is very different from what was advertised.
Yeah, so let's jump into performances. That's a great place to start. Like I said, Oscar Isaac is great in this movie. He never soft pedals it once. He leans 110% into the performance. He is super good. Like, his character of William Tell is fascinating to watch. I mean, because sitting at a poker table, right, you're trying to have a poker face and not show any emotion, and he does a great job of that. But additionally, we're able to kind of see deeper than just the people around the table with him. We're able to look under the surface because we know more about him, and we can see that he's a truly complex individual. At times, he's carrying conversations with characters, and he's motivated by his own reasons that we don't fully understand. We come to get to know him better later in the film. He's super good. Tiffany Haddish, I think, is a little out of her depth in this movie. This is a really good opportunity for her to move into dramatic film, I think. But she just misses the mark in some of the early scenes. She doesn't quite rise to meet Isaac's level, and I think she just comes off a little out of place in some scenes where he's being really intense, and then it'll cut to her and she's like laughing off like a joke he just said. Like, it's just a little disconnected, but I think this is a good opportunity for her to learn and grow. Ty Sheridan as Kirk with the C, it was spelled C-I-R-K, which is the worst. Got to be one of the worst ways I've ever heard to spell Kirk. You'd think it'd be K-I-R-C, but anyway, he's okay. I didn't like him much in this movie either. He just kind of felt flat and boring, but Andy was quick to point out that's called acting, which is true. Like, I was like, he's dull and lame, and Andy was like, he's acting. That's what his character is supposed to be, dull and lame. I thought, okay, it's kind of true. Andy's right. Andy, what do you think of these folks?
So I think Oscar Isaac is tremendous in this. I mean, he's such a tortured person, and he, like I said, he's stoic for most of the film. Like he's you know, he's got this poker face, but it's interesting because he was like, he talks about that, and he's like, you can wear a hood and mirrored glasses and a mask, and it's not going to matter. Like, I can read you by how you play. It's really interesting, and he doesn't do any of those things. He's just kind of stoic, but he's got some really tremendous scenes. Willem Dafoe is also in this important scenes there. He's got a couple of monologues that are just like earth shaking, or just like really riveting, long takes where he kind of gets into his past and, you know, kind of why he's gone to prison. I thought Ty Sheridan I've always seen him in like, I think of him in Ready Player One and like a lot of those like kind of teenager roles. Yeah. So it's nice to see him do something a little bit more grown up. He's kind of a lost youth. He's like, yeah, I tried college. It wasn't really for me. You know, I'm on the outside with my mom. I don't talk to my mom anymore. So he's kind of an aimless, you know, young 20 something, and it's a very different role for him. So I thought he was fine. Like we said, Tiffany Haddish is a little bit out of her depth, like acting wise. Like these are, especially Oscar Isaac, is, he's in, like, he might win an award for this role.
Right. Like, he's super intense and into it, and she's just not quite on that level yet. And that's okay. She's mostly a comedy actress. Like, that's all right. She's learning.
Yeah, and that's completely fine. I think, you got to give people chances, and I think that there's a good step in that direction. I think, that being said, she's probably the weakest actor in this film, but she's still fine. Like, she's there just to sort of be the quasi love interest and the facilitator of this stable gambling situation.
And you definitely grow on her as the film goes. It's too like, the more you get in the film, the more I was like, okay, like I'm coming to understand her character and where she's coming from. And Willem Dafoe, I mean, like you said, he's good, but he's not in much of this film. He's mostly relegated to the background, except for when he's needed. He's not any kind of like main core cast or anything. So those are kind of our big players. Andy, what'd you think of the card counting? Right. Obviously, there's going to be some cards and casinos and gambling and slot machines. That's a big part of this film.
I liked all that because it was almost like a documentary style where he explains a lot of the games. Like, he at the very beginning of the films, he explains how to count cards in 21, which is incredibly complex. It's just how it has to do with stats. But then we eventually get to poker, Texas Hold'em, and he explains that he assumes you don't know, and the explanation of these things is very clear, but also explanation of how the gambling works, how kind of the system is, how you play against the other players, and just the different styles. Like, it's definitely true to all that, but it's not the like I said, it looked like the kind of thing where he's like, yeah, just one more big score and I'm out, and I settle all my debts and ride off into the sunset, and then it's all going to go wrong. And it's not that kind of movie at all.
No, it really isn't. I mean, it's not even a movie primarily about counting cards. It's a subversive kind of film that way. It runs in a different direction. And for most of the film, I think where I thought it was kind of headed, I was a little bored. Isaac, again, Oscar Isaac is great in this movie. Every scene he is in, you are looking at him like he is awesome in this film. He probably should win some awards for this film. I hope he does. A lot of the film I felt flat. Just kind of basic reasoning for this. Most of it's, like I said, shot on location. It looked like they were shooting out of like hotel rooms, not like nice hotel ballrooms either, because Oscar Isaac's character, William Tell, is a traveling card shark who lives a very Spartan lifestyle. Like, he is not going to luxurious places. He's staying at the Motel 6, and that's where they shot the film. Like, it's very basic stuff that way. It doesn't have to be bad, but I think that combined with a lot of like just simple lighting and simple lens choice makes a lot of this film, which is mostly conversations and mostly talking heads, feel a little flat. But there are really unique moments that really stand out, like really fantastic set pieces. It's a great scene when Oscar Isaac, about halfway through the film, when Oscar Isaac's sitting down and he's talking to Ty Sheridan's character Kirk, and they're just sitting at like a hotel table over like morning breakfast talking, and then out of nowhere, Isaac kind of spins into this like thoughtful, poignant speech on his life, and the camera pulls way out and does this like 3-minute long take truck in and gets so close to his face that his ears are out of focus. And it's awesome, dude. It's such a great monologue, and it's delivered so well. And then they go right back to like flat lenses and normal talking head movie for 20 minutes, and it comes out of nowhere. And this movie is chock full of these moments. This, honestly, about a half hour into this film, out of nowhere, this movie cuts to a lens choice in a flashback scene that is so outrageous. It's probably the most radical lens I've ever seen projected onto a film screen. It was so, and it's one of the coolest things I've probably seen in a decade in a theater. In the card counter, it was so dope. I was so impressed at how bold and unique and visionary this one flashback scene is. And then we go right back to normal film. It's like an acid trip. It's a fever dream, and it's the coolest stuff. But that's not the whole film. That's just little bits and pieces of it. And those bits and pieces are brilliant. They really are.
Yeah, I really wanted to talk about that, but I don't want to talk about it too much because it has to do with like the mysterious backstory. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there are some, a lot of the background stuff is actually very disturbing. And that's reflected in, like Zach said, the use of camera lens choice, because we get a really distorted visual, which helps with kind of the distortions of the past. It's a way that the visuals reflect kind of what the story is about.
Yeah, it really does. I guess when it comes to the card counter, I don't know what I expected. I didn't expect something large and grand. If anything, Andy knows. Like, I saw that trailer and was like, that movie's gonna be a bomb. That trailer is terrible, and it's better than I thought. It really is. But it's also not. It's not any kind of, it's not supposed to be any kind of blockbuster. It's probably not going to blow your socks off. And I think if you're passionate for indie film and solid performances and are willing to go see something that's got Martin Scorsese's name on it, even if it's only in presenting capacity, I think you'll like this movie. I really do. Like, I don't see it as a disappointment. But it's small and it's intimate. And like, that's an important note. I think like you're not going to walk into this and see something that's going to, well, I didn't think it'd blow my mind, but there are certain scenes that actually did. So I don't know what I'm saying. Andy, help bail me out of this.
Well, I think what's important to remember is that Paul Schrader he does not shy away from difficult topics or controversial topics. First Reformed is very much about environmentalism, and there's a character there who's kind of an environmental terrorist. But that film's about that and climate change, taken very serious, and things like what kind of environment is my daughter going to grow up in 30, 40 years when the earth is on fire, kind of. He's really tackling these difficult subjects, and he does that again in this film as well. It's some really heavy subject matter, which I didn't really expect going in, because again, the trailer makes it look like a down and out card playing gambling movie. It's like Maverick or something. It's just one more game, just one more hit, and I'll be free, and I'll be, fine, and fall in love with this woman and have all these winnings and ride off into the sunset. And it's got to deal with the mob a little bit. It looks like that kind of movie.
Right.
And it's anything, but it was funny because I was reading through the Reddit comments, and so many of it was people going like, this is not about cards. This is not about gambling at all. And people were like, really, what's it about then? And I was like, yeah, like the trailer's just misleading, but it is about a very difficult subject matter, and it does not shy away from it. And that's what it's primarily about, which we're not going to spoil on the show.
Any other thoughts for recommendations, Andy?
I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend The Card Counter?
I absolutely would. I think it's a small, you said it's a small, intimate film. It's like just got the bones, but it's very powerful, very good performances. And like I said, taking on a very difficult subject matter that doesn't seem to be going away, because it's dealing with things that are kind of old news now, but still very relevant. Very powerful movie, in my opinion. Great performances. I think Oscar Isaac should get nominated, if not win an Oscar. We'll see what else comes out this year, but he's top notch, and I really recommend this.
Yeah, I'm in a unique position. This is a film that I personally did not really fall in love with, but I'd still recommend it, honestly. I think there's a lot of people out there that are going to like this movie who have never seen it and don't know what they're getting into. I think of like mid-budget talking head kind of movies that feature some kind of like interesting male protagonist of the past. I think of movies like The Americans starring George Clooney, or I don't know, that's more action based. I was going to say like Paycheck starring Ben Affleck, like films that like are not blockbuster budgets, but like there's something going on, right? We have a mysterious male lead. They have a certain set of skills. They're in some kind of situation that they're going to, maybe some crime involved. And this movie like is better than those. It really is. Like, I like it more, but I think production wise, it's not as good. It's just good writing and really select direction that made it powerful. I think if Schrader had a more powerful, like a better resume directing wise, this would have been a better film. But it's good stuff, and I'd recommend it. I like The Card Counter. I really did.
Yeah, I was going to say it feels a lot like a play almost, because it has such a small cast, and they're just sort of changing locations. It feels very theatrical, stage theatrical.
Yeah, it's in time. At times, I was like, it feels like they shot this over a couple weekends, like between when Oscar Isaac was between shoots or something. Like, oh, hey, meet us at this hotel. We're going to shoot like scenes 4, 6, and 12, and then we're going to shoot these scenes over here, and then they just put it all together in editing, and it works. But one thing though, I should say, hard R, right? This is certainly an R-rated film.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't want to. I don't want to spoil this with a content warning, but it is a bit of a general content warning. Yeah, I mean it is some pretty difficult subject matter.
Mhm.
I've heard there's actually been a lot of walkouts of this movie. I think part of that because it's not like a gambling action movie that like it kind of looks like, but I think also because it's taking on a very difficult subject matter.
Yeah, and I would say, yeah, one, because of the difficult subject matter, and two, because I think people might run into the problem I had, which is like this movie just kind of looks cheap. And I think at first shine, it kind of does, but like stick with it. You'll actually be surprised where it goes. And that's our show. Man, what a week. Andy, again, apologies for the big delay. My God, I didn't mean for it to take this long for us to get a new episode together, but we are coming back. Not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after, 12 days from now. We will be back for Off Script, taking next week off to finish figuring out the things I've been figuring out. Andy, what are we watching?
Well, I just wanted to say that September has been a little bit light. We said Cry Macho was the kind of big release this week, the Clint Eastwood neo-Western, which is available in theaters and on HBO. And the big release this week is Dear Evan Hansen, which I haven't heard real great things about. We're going to be skipping that. And we will be back on October 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. So with Venom, Let There Be Carnage, which is out October 1st, and also The Many Saints of Newark, also on October 1st on HBO Max / theaters. So that's going to be a big how we're going to kick off October.
Perfect.
Spooktober.
I didn't make a banner for this, so I'm just going to throw up, boom, returning October 1st with Venom 2 and the Sopranos movie. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to be honest, I'm not so excited about those two films in particular. I'm not a big Sopranos fan, so I'm not super up on Many Saints of Newark, though it does star Alessandro Nivola in a starring role, and he's good stuff. And also Venom 2, maybe Woody Harrelson will be good in it. I don't know. I didn't like Venom 1, man. Like
the first Venom was incredibly successful. It made almost $1 billion.
It was.
So it definitely found an audience. It wasn't very good. I hope this one is better. This is also very short, which isn't a really good sign. It's a flat 90 minutes. So it's
with credits.
So it's really pretty short, which doesn't really bode well, but also if it's bad, at least it's not very long. So I think it'll be fine. I think it'll be entertaining.
I sure hope so. If you enjoyed the show today, if you maybe thought this was entertaining, let us know in the comments below. You can comment on Facebook where we live stream the show usually every Tuesday, barring, personal crises like last week. We are available on iTunes and Spotify, the usual places you get your podcasts. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, and we're on YouTube where we upload our live streams as well. And you can comment, you can like and subscribe, you can follow us on any of those channels. But if you really want to help the show, if you really want to do a solid for your off script guys, just subscribe. Just subscribe to the show to get new episodes delivered straight to your phone every Tuesday when we do them, usually every single week. And certainly through October, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out. So if you want to know what's worth you watching, what's worth your time, keep it here on Off Script for more. From all of us at Off Script, the home of bold cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.